There are two lines in one of Longfellow's poems which have a very classical ring about them. He paraphrases and rephrases a very early statement. It goes back to classical times. Longfellow writes, "The mills of God grind slowly, but they grind exceeding small." This thought seems to open a way to a rather practical insight into the patterns of life under which we live. I think everyone will agree that present conditions are not happy. They are not pleasant, but they are undoubtedly the inevitable results of the operation of the law of cause and effect. We have caused certain situations to arise in human society, and we must inevitably pay for the mistakes that we have made. Many persons of unphilosophical minds take the point of view that all these happenings are accidents. They are beyond human control. They arise from circumstances which we do not understand and we cannot overcome. This type of thinking brings with it gradually a certain fatalism and comes into violent conflict with the idealism that has always been present in human nature. We want to believe in good, but we look around us and we do not see evidence, at least immediate evidence, of goodness. We see all kinds of intemperances. We recognize the tremendous crisis that we face today in international affairs, and we like to think that we are the innocent victims of an outrageous providence. Some try to solve it all by simply denying that there is any providential factor. They like to think that man can do as he pleases, and that whatever he does is right because he does it. And mistakes do not really exist if enough people believe them to be correct. All this thinking has a dismal effect upon the private lives of people. We are all concerned with conditions around us, and these conditions appear to be worsening every day. And a certain hopelessness or helplessness sets in upon us. We begin to lose faith in deity. We begin to question the universality of laws. We remember a statement made not too long ago that it has required 6 million laws to attempt to enforce the 10 Commandments. We are in a problem. We know it. We recognize it. But we are unable to cope with it inside of our own natures. Human beings are transitory as far as this world is concerned. We are here for a time, and then we depart, leaving behind us the chaos that burdened us during our lifetimes. All of these doubtful factors, these dismal prospects, the anxieties over ecology and pollution, our fear that nuclear plants are going to leak poisons into the air, the difficulties in the Near East, the curtailment of our petroleum supply, these seem to be piling up accidents. They seem to represent a confusion that is basic. But actually, the confusion is not basic at all. There is nothing in natural law that says that these problems must exist. They exist not because of natural law primarily, but because of the violation of it. The individual has not yet learned to obey the plan of which he is a part. He regards himself as a person standing alone in the midst of confusion. He regards other people much as he regards himself. They are persons. They are doing things we do not like. They are doing things to hurt us. And as a result of that, we get tied up in short-range thinking, in which it seems to us that if we were running this universal show, we would run it differently. People have had that thought from the beginning. But if man had run it differently, we would not be in this dilemma. Now, it's obvious that the average person is not going to be able to make a universal reformation of mankind. And out of the problem, there comes a realization that integrity is a highly personal thing, but that this integrity, when distributed throughout civilization, would solve the problems that confront us. We have allowed in the last 50 years our moral and ethical codes to be deeply corrupted. And most of all, we have trusted our destiny upon one very fallible factor, and that is wealth. We are ambitious to have, and in the process of having, we have allowed ourselves to compromise practically every ethical standard with which we have been endowed. We have neglected to listen to the voice of conscience. We have failed to learn from the wisdom of the ages. We have failed the spiritual dedications that could have protected us. And now we find ourselves between the upper and lower grindstones of the mill of the gods. And this is not a very pleasant position. In the Orient, for example, the attitude towards this whole situation is very different from what it is in the West. Some ways, perhaps we have improved situations, but in the main, we have overlooked the essential reason for human life. We are here to labor and to learn. We are here to help each other and not to help ourselves off of each other. We are here to work together for a common good and not to sacrifice the common good for personal ambition. Yet every day as we watch the news releases and listen to the informed or misinformed or uninformed commentators, we come to the same essential conclusion. The primary purpose of civilization as we know it today is to maintain an ever higher lifestyle. Lifestyle to us means opulence. It means to have the things we want. It means to go on with reckless spending and to, in any way possible, accumulate what we can, even at the expense of others. Now, this is contrary to the law of heaven, as the Chinese called it. This is contrary to the plan which has its own purposes. And these purposes are all summed up in one great purpose: the salvation of all that lives. We are supposed to be working toward a better world. We are supposed to be dedicated to the gradual perfection of our society. The term civilization means the condition of living in a state of civility with each other. Civilization is almost a synonym for cooperation, but we have changed this and made civilization a synonym for competition. Every move that is made in our modern political tangle is calculated in terms of personal advantage or economic advancement. We have pushed the problem of wealth just about as far as it can go. And we are not properly understanding the situation if we assume that wealth per se is wrong. Wealth is something that is a heavy responsibility upon humanity. Our entire industrialized civilization depends upon wealth. The wise use of it, the proper distribution of it, and the moral control of it makes it a useful servant. But where we disregard these factors and make accumulation the primary end of existence, we are going to remain, as we are now, in a state of internal and environmental disorder and disaster. To begin with, we have to go and look at the individual, because the individual has a peculiar divinely given right to live well. He may not always live in an environment that is doing the best, but this does not exonerate him. And in many affairs of living, we are always in a condition to advance the basic integrities of life. There's hardly a day go by when someone does not come to me with a sad story of how they have been cheated, defrauded, abused, misused, scandalized by those closest to them. We find constant problems in the home between parents and children, in which we see the gradual decline of our ethical control of ourselves. We know that our own lives could be made better, and that a person living well in an environment that is tragically difficult has a peculiar reward for his own endeavor. Because, after all, he is here for a time. He must leave what he has behind him, but he must take what he is with him. The great trouble today is that he is not sure what he can take with him. He does not feel very comfortable about his own conduct. He would hate to be interviewed on the gates of the other life and have a full story of his own conduct brought to his attention. He hopes, materialists particularly hope, that this dreaded circumstance will never arise, because when he is dead, and that is the end of it. Now, this oblivion at the end of life is a consolation for the corrupt. It is a means in which the individual sincerely believes that he can escape forever from the consequences of his own actions. He will depart, as his ancestors departed, and as his descendants will depart. And in each case, he will leave forever the troubles he caused. He will leave the mistakes which he permitted to endure to become part of the heritage of his descendants. The individual, therefore, in many instances, is seriously of the mind that if there is no life after death, he probably is better off. He would hope that oblivion will end it all, and that those who come after him will also pass into oblivion, as those who came before him passed into oblivion. Now, there is really no scientific proof of this point of view. There is no clear evidence that the individual leaving this life does not in some way face the consequences of his own conduct. We are no longer particularly interested in the idea that a few virtuous persons, whose virtues in turn may be questioned, will go to heaven, and that for the rest, purgatory waits. This type of thinking was fashionable at one time, and also was a moral deterrent to corruption. The individual did not relish the concept of suffering forever for the sins he committed today. Philosophy has begun to analyze that situation and comes to the very simple conclusion that the universal power that fashioned all things did not intend that a great part of his creation should go to perdition forever. It was not part of the purpose that they should be lost souls. There was no reason to assume that the individual, part of a growing and unfolding life, should be thwarted, blocked, and forever condemned for the ignorance of a particular generation. The Oriental mind, working with this problem, came to the simple conclusion that whether we are in this